every time it strikes me how Fred Warner practices like he plays, to the point that he makes it clear that he really cares. You know what I mean? Like, he celebrates plays, he talks trash, he makes hits, he bounces everywhere. I don't think I quite understood. I remember last year seeing Fred at practice and just recognizing what a physical kind of specimen he is, right? How different he is than most guys who play the sport at the highest level. But I think watching him every day practice has given me an appreciation for how hard he practices. Like, the things you say about Kittle and the way he practices, I think you say about Fred. Fred's always out there. And it doesn't feel like there's a speed. I was talking to our buddy Shane Vereen the other day. He's like, I like playing in preseason games because they were faster than joint practices. They weren't as fast as regular season games, but they just kind of helped you. I didn't want to play a whole game, and I think Fred, whatever it is you're allowed to do, wherever that line is in an NFL practice today, Fred is up on that line. And it just really stands out, I think, when you watch him practice every day, that he just is the same every single day.
Can I throw another name in there that I've just been the last couple of years, but what really kind of keeping an eye on in this camp? Like, he's quieter than Fred, but his level of just play speed and intensity and effort. Jimmy Ward is a pretty high level practice guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's there just pretty, and this guy's not as sexy of a name yet, and we'll see how good he actually is as a starter, but I think that safety combination is pretty dialed in. Like, they are not fucking around. They're taking reps full speed. You talk about pros. I think that word gets thrown out. I mean, everyone's technically a pro. They're all getting paid. But, like, we all know, if you follow sports long enough, what it kind of represents. Like, how you act, how you operate, how hard you practice, how serious you take things. They really, like, part of Hard Knocks, the whole thing Dan Campbell's selling, and I think so many teams that start from scratch are like grit and toughness. And you just realize the 49ers have it in spades. Like, they're all their core guys. Like, other good players are just dogs. Just they would play tomorrow and fucking crack skulls. Like, no problem. Like, if you told these guys they had, like, Friday was for the 1 seed, I mean, I'd bet on the Niners. Now, I don't know. I mean, Packers might be better than I thought. I think the Packers are going to be good, but even playing Rodgers full go, I'd be like, I think this team, I think they'd be ready to fly around and crush people.
Maybe they're just naturally this way because they weren't, like, highly touted guys. But the three linebackers, I mean, obviously you got Fred. Azeez Al-Shire and Dre Greenlaw are, as you like to say, I've watched those guys off on their own, doing their own little drills. Those three are serious as a heart attack when they're together. Like, there is Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shire are always sweating, kind of just talking to themselves or talking to somebody else or locked in. That group is locked in. And it's the three of them. Like, it is this little core. They have other linebackers, but when there's a bunch of positional drills going on, the other linebackers are off doing, like, special team shit. And it's just those three guys. It is like, when you watch them, there's less people around them than the quarterbacks, because there's only three quarterbacks, but they've got multiple people there to catch the ball for them, plus Greasy, plus Slowick, plus Kubiak, right? There's a lot. The linebackers, it's just like the three of them and Johnny Holland and, like, one other assistant. And they're just off by themselves, and they're just always doing something. And they just look like if you just saw the three of them, you think those three are plotting something. I don't know what they're up to, but those three people are up to something. That's how they always look.
What I think makes this team's very reminiscent to me in terms of the way they go about their business as the Harbaugh teams. Beside Fred, who ultimately, relative to the rest of the league, like, is Fred that loud at practice? Like, he's the only guy talking, so he kind of stands out. Like, part of the Seattle thing was they were always screaming, hooting and hollering, the LOB, right? Everyone. And, and really it was 4 or 5 guys, but just screaming like, fuck you, Russell, you suck. Can you imagine how loud it was? The Ravens, historically, with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, it was loud. I'm talking at practice. When I was with the Eagles, Asante Samuel never shut up. Now, granted, he was our Pro Bowler. Like, he was sweet, but it's just loud, I mean, Fred's talking, but I don't think Fred is, like, overly. To me, it's just a very workmanlike, I mean, their two best players don't say a peep in Trent and Bosa, right? Not a peep. You don't.
Bosa's expression doesn't change.
You couldn't pay Bosa to say a word. Honestly, Jimmy, who is a very you feel his presence throughout the season. He doesn't.
Jimmy now means Jimmy Ward.
We're on the defensive side. Do you ever hear Jimmy saying anything besides communicating with his guys?
I think he was the guy at the center of the huddle before practice on Wednesday.
That's what I mean. But I'm just saying, when football starts, they are. Their defense feels like their cohesion of everyone on the same page is pretty high.
Yeah, it does. And they're really deep on the D line. But I think when I mentioned Fred talking, I would say the best way to describe it is just imagine Fred in a game. That's how he acts, just the same way. He's not making noise after a play, not afraid to talk, but it's not anything extra because it's a practice. It's just the same as he does in a game is what he does in a practice. And that level of consistent effort, you're talking about Trey. All you want is to know what you're getting every day. And the one of the things Kyle Shanahan does not have to think about. He does not spend 4 seconds thinking about, does my defense have the right leadership? Is Fred Warner going to show up to practice? How's Fred going to practice today? How's Bosa going to practice today? How are Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shire? How's Hufanga and Jimmy Ward going to practice today? Does not cross his mind for 3 seconds. D'Amico Ryans doesn't spend 4 seconds worrying about it.
No.
Doesn't have to say a word to anybody. Guys, we got to bring it today.
I've respected D'Amico since I watched him, and I mean, he came in. Ended up doing the West Coast, but just the way he was talked about in the league, super high level guy. If I was going to play devil's advocate, are we sure this guy's some can't miss coach? And clearly Kyle loves him, and he's a good coach. He did inherit a pretty awesome situation, right? Saul left, cupboard pretty full.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of just all these. Now he
not a lot of Hall of Fame coaches that just coach shitty players, John.
No, but
what do they always say when they get in the Hall of Fame?
A lot of these young guys were already kind of humming.
Yeah.
I'm pro D'Amico. I'm just saying it's pretty ideal situation to come in and kind of keep flying.
Especially now, now his corners have upgraded from last year. I think where he's going to get some credit is if they blitz a lot, do a lot of man coverage. He's going to get credit for, he's putting his stamp on this thing. I think that's where it's going to happen.
I guess my ultimate point here is Dan Quinn goes to the Cowboys the year before. They have the worst defense in the league. Mike Nolan's clearly Dan Quinn impacted them, right? You've seen Fangio go different places. This is a situation their defense was – Robert Saleh got a head job for a reason. Their defense was dominant when they just had a couple injuries, right? So it's just one of those. If D'Amico gets a job, to me, people in the league should be lining up to try to take over this bad boy. Fucking stacked.
Fangio?
Well, it's probably the guy. The problem is that is going to be talked about nonstop. I even think it'll come up throughout the season. Vic is historic. He runs a 3-4 defense. This is a 4-3 defense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long way down the line.
The world has changed since Vic was last. Right?
Because he was kind of head coach.
But even, I'm just saying, we're talking well, I guess it'd be only 1 year of football since he last coached. Right? Yeah, he was the coach last year.
Yeah.
I think Saleh will take Azeez I mean, both those guys are unrestricted free agents. So, was that you or Dickinson that had the idea today?
I threw it out.
It was you.
Pretty big stretch though. I mean, it'd be Al-Shire. I don't know if Greenlaw quite has Pro Bowl upside, and maybe I'm just because he was injured last year. I didn't see him as much. Either one. Let's just say one of them makes the Pro Bowl. So you get Fred and him in the Pro Bowl, 51 or 57. You're not just letting them both walk for nothing for comp picks. We're not Ozzie Newsome out here. I think you'd have to hope to do a tag. Now, you're not getting a first-round pick for lunch, but could you get a, late second or something? I don't know. Or do you pay one of them?
Well, you might pay one of them. Well,
Parag's move historically has been extend early. Both those guys are mid to late round picks. I mean, Greenlaw's a 5th round. I mean, could you get, for 3-year, $30 million extension, $17 million? That's just feels low in modern day NFL. But
while you're trying to extend Ayuk early.
To me, you're just in no rush when he's drafted that late. I'm rolling on Ayuk's contract for a couple years at a cheap rate, aren't I?
As long as you can, but he just might be in the holdout mode, hold-in mode.
The one thing you said, and they've said this, we negotiate with 1 year left, and Nick Bosa didn't get it. Neither did Debo Samuel. They both got extended. In theory, Bosa gets it at the
Right.
like, going into their last year. It's like, you got one more year, then we pay you.